Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley, and for the better part of the past 26 years, I've had the most distinct and honorable pleasure of working alongside and coaching some of the world's top peak performers. And here, what we do each week is we bring their ideas, strategy, experience, and wisdom directly to you. Do you sometimes feel like you're stuck on that hamster wheel in life and you're just simply spinning, but you're not going in the direction or the speed you'd like? Well, if so, you have landed in the right spot. The Bamboo Lab podcast is written, created, and broadcast just for you, all you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. All right, just a little bit of house cleaning today. Housekeeping, we are currently being broadcast and followed avidly on six continents, 28 countries, nearly all 50 states, and over 620 cities across this great nation of ours. And I want to start off with a nice heart letter we received just today from Brent. And Brent shouts out to Mark Parker, one of our avid followers. He said, Mark has been a huge advocate of your podcast. I started listening and as well based on his recommendation. They are insightful, challenging, perspective, and all the good stuff we need. Thank you, Brent. All right, before we get going and announce and bring up our amazing guest today, I want to take the time to dedicate this episode to Brian Egelski, badge 383. Brian was killed in the line of duty on July 11th, 1994 at the age of 30. He was the patrol partner and best friend of the amazing man we have on here today. Brian, this one's for you. All right, let's dissect. All right, today we have a gentleman who I have been able to call and honored to call my friend for so many years now. We have retired Detective Sergeant Kyle McPhee from the Michigan State Police. Kyle has a bio that's so many pages long. I have to try to summon this up a little bit. So, after 31 years with the Michigan State Police, Kyle retired in 2020. He worked multiple vice assignments involving undercover narcotics, stolen property, fugitive apprehension, and covert surveillance operations. He served as the major case detective at the Michigan State Lansing Post, supervised an elite 9 county-wide criminal interdiction squad, served as the major case detective on the Michigan State Police Lansing Post, supervised the Michigan State Police SID, 1st District Marijuana and Tobacco Tax Investigation Team. I mean, I'm even getting tongue-tied reading all his credentials. He's an adjunct professor at 12 different Michigan universities and colleges, including instructing criminal investigation courses. And you know what's interesting? Specialized training. Kyle's got 29 different various specialized training areas he's trained in. And he also is the author of 4 editions of the Michigan State Police Sex Offender Violation Investigation Training Manual from 2004 to 2007. He is the amazing husband to an amazing woman, his amazing wife, Teddy Jo, and on September 14th, they will celebrate their 26th anniversary. He's got 2 sons who are, what I can see, are a lot like Kyle, Hunter and Dylan, 2 amazing young men who are going out to change the world. And he is the dog father to Thunder Chief, a 7-year-old white golden retriever. Woo! And he is son to Bucky and Roberta out of St. Ignace, Michigan. Kyle McPhee, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast, my friend.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
And I've been excited to have you on here for a while. So for those of you out there in the Bamboo Pack, Kyle and I were able to go to high school together, played sports together, got separated for a number of years. He went off and served in the Michigan State Police for obviously 30-some years and did a lot of hard time and saw a lot of things that the rest of us haven't seen as he kept the wolves at bay from intruding into our fortresses and our lives, where I went off in the corporate world and the business world. And now, after a few years, we got reacquainted a couple of years ago, talked on the phone, texted back and forth, and this is a great honor. It really is. So, Kyle, I know a lot about you. I mean, from the days of playing football to keg parties in the garage but the rest of the world may not know as much. So can you tell us, who is Kyle McPhee?
Oh, man. Yeah, you know a lot, Brian. We did some crazy things as youngsters, but
we did.
I was, as you know, I was born and raised in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and St. Ignace there. I was a skinny, pigeon-toed, late bloomer, adrenaline junkie as a youngster. I had a tremendous childhood growing up there in the 70s and 80s. It was great. I had blue-collar, hardworking, loving, supporting parents. There was no cell phones. There was no internet. Who could ask for a better upbringing? as a child. Just lived a free life up there in the UP. One of my childhood idols was Evel Knievel, great Evel Knievel. And unfortunately, I tried to replicate nearly all of his stunts, when we were young, doing with dirt bikes and ATVs and snowmobiles and, doing all that craziness and running around with our friends through the countryside. The DNR obviously was our arch nemesis up there. And so me and the friends, Steven and Andy and Jimmy, we were all kind of like the Bo and Luke Dukes of Mackinac County. Nothing we did was ever like felonious, but there was definitely some misdemeanors that we never got caught for, as you know. But we had a great upbringing. I had a really thick medical file at the Mackinac Straits Hospital at a young age. I think when I graduated high school, I had already broken 2 legs, 3 collarbones, 2 wrists, 2 ankles. Let me see. I think every finger on both hands. And I suffered multiple concussions, which now, in my 50s, those old injuries are starting to catch up with me for sure. Oh, for sure. The ironic thing, Brian, is I ended up working for the DNR from age 16 to 22 at the St. Ignace Harbor as a harbor master in downtown St. Ignace there.
Did you get a different perspective on the DNR at that point?
Yeah, it was a different division, It was like the waterways division. So those weren't the guys I ran from, but the guys we did run from would come down there during the yacht races, and they would always make it known that they know who ran from them. They just never caught us, and they'd always say, "Well, the statute of limitations has passed, so we're going to let you off with a warning." So that was always interesting banter with the DNR guys. My father, Calvin, who goes by Buck. Everybody knows him as Buck. He worked on the Mackinac Bridge for 35 years, and he saw a lot of things doing that job. And after he retired, he was elected as a Mackinac County Commissioner, where he currently is serving at 82 years old in his 8th consecutive term. And he's going to call it quits and get out of the political scene at the end of this year. So I'm pretty proud of him for doing that. He put up with a lot of stuff there, but he's really good at it. He just knew so much history from up there that, and then my mother was an award-winning florist, as you know, for over 30 years. She owned and operated her own flower shop and greenhouse. And I worked there as a youngster a lot and learned, that side of the business. And basically like in the greenhouse and hauling dirt. I was good at hauling dirt. I have an older brother, Steve's 5 years older than myself. He currently resides down in the Detroit area. As you mentioned, I'm married to my illustrious wife, Teddy Jo, for 26 years. And 2 sons are graduates of the U.S. Army Infantry School in Fort Benning, Georgia. They're currently both assigned to the Michigan National Guard, and I believe it's the 125th Infantry Regiment. And my youngest son, Dylan, is also a Michigan State Trooper. He graduated from the State Police Academy in February, and he's going to start his career in the business. And so, we've had some busy times here recently, and as you know, when I was up north there, I really had a love of sports, and that playing all the different sports that I played really changed my life on how things were going to play out.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get the latest insights from top mortgage pros on Mortgage Connects, a podcast by MGIC. We interview thought leaders from across the industry to share their wide-ranging expertise and candid views on critical market developments and current housing trends. Our guests reveal highly effective marketing and referral strategies, training tips and best practices, and what you can expect from the mortgage market in the future. Hear from experts like best-selling author Todd Duncan, U.S. Bank's Lenny McNeil, and Freddie Mac's Danny Gardner. Listen to Mortgage Connects on your favorite app or at mortgageconnects.com today.
Well, I just want to take this time to thank Mr. and Mrs. McPhee for raising such an amazing person who now is raising 2 amazing men who Kyle has spent the better part of 30-some years protecting us, and now his sons are doing the same thing, whether in the reserve or the National Guard and or on the force. So thank you, Mr. and Mrs. McPhee. I probably could have dedicated this one to you as well. So
Thank you.
Kyle, you said Evel Knievel, and I loved Evel Knievel as a kid too. And I always had the action figure, but I never had the motorcycle with that little wind-up platform that you had.
I had them all.
You had them all.
Everyone.
I would say 6 years ago, I was at a neighborhood party, and one of my best friends at the time, Sami, he's from Finland. He collects a lot of older things, and he showed up at the party, and he had just bought this. He had the toy itself, or the figure. He had the bike. He had the little wind up machine, and he had the motorhome.
Yeah, they just re-released it. They're selling it again.
Oh, so he bought this at at a rummage sale, or it was the original.
He got the original.
He got the original, and I wanted that so bad from him, but he was not going to part with it. But I think I might have to go find a new one, because that was one thing I always wanted, was the rest of that whole thing. Do you remember when he tried to jump? Was it Snake Canyon?
Yeah, the Snake River.
River. Yeah, I remember that. It didn't go so well, but.
I think he broke. What was it? I used to read stuff about him all the time, and one of the things, he broke almost 300 bones in his body. And I think he had mentioned before he passed away that most of the time before it even happened, he knew if he was going to crash or not. And even if he knew he was going to crash, he still did it, because it was that much of a draw, and he wanted that adulation, and it was for the fans and stuff. He knew he was not going to make a lot of the stunts that he did.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So growing up in St. Ignace, you had a lot of great role models. Who would you say were, or who was, the greatest inspiration for the man you've become today, Kyle?
Well, hands down, my parents. I got to give my parents that. They were not helicopter parents.
Mm-hmm.
They were hardworking, and you know how it was growing up there, but they just were, they let you go out and do your thing. And you'd come home at dinner time. We'd leave, and you had to be home at dinner time, and we'd go all day doing our things. And, they were just really good that way. They weren't overbearing, but my dad he was really, really good, really good teacher, my parents allowed you to make mistakes, and they allow you to have failures in life. But they were always there to offer advice on how to not repeat those mistakes. And whenever I wanted to quit something, they were real big on say, don't quit. You can't be a quit, because if you quit now, you're going to quit later in life. And they were really good about those kind of life lessons growing up. I tell you what, Brian, one of the greatest things that I learned as a youngster was, it was a learning technique for me. And my older brother, who I said was 5 years older, what I would do is I would closely watch his decision-making choices, or his decisions and choices in life, the activities and his behaviors. I kind of really closely watch what he did. And then when he had successes, I'd follow that path. But when he didn't have successes and he had setbacks and failures, I made sure that I took a different fork in the road when those came to me. So I kind of learned by watching him. I guess I always tell myself I was consciously navigating the potholes in the road of life at a young age.
Oh, yeah. Well,
not to say that I didn't have any along the way, because I certainly did. I was just able to avoid many bad ones that I saw coming beforehand.
Nothing like nothing better than a big brother to show you what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I give him full credit for that. Like my dad, very inspiring. He was a top-level teacher, fabricator, inventor, engineer, and he never went to college for one day. I always say he has a master's degree in common sense and logical thought. He's just, he teaches me a lot. His advice over the years, never steered me in the wrong direction. It always led me to where I wanted to be. I just didn't know I wanted to be there, but I trusted his wisdom to get me there.
And the thing is, he never ages.
No, he's doing pretty well. He's still really active, and he's mom's struggling. We recently had to put her in an assisted home. She needed some physical assistance, so she's still doing well. She still has she's still sharp as a tack, and so is Dad. So we've got a few challenges, but I try to get up there as much as I can to help them out.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I just want to take a moment and capture for the Bamboo Pack what Kyle has said so far, so we don't get lost in all this experience he shared. The one thing I really picked up on, and Kyle's going to elaborate on this in a little while, but if you don't know Kyle, if you haven't seen Kyle, Kyle's a big dude. He's tall, he's broad-shouldered. I mean, he's the kind of guy you walk into a bar, you're not going. If you want to get into a fight, he's not the first guy you're going to walk up to. But he started off as a skinny, pigeon-toed kid, and he was a late bloomer. Got a thick medical file, multiple concussions, broken bones. So starting off at that young age, you would never have guessed this is the Kyle McPhee we'd have before us today. And how many of us out there right now, some way, shape, or form, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, we feel like we're that skinny, pigeon-toed kid, but if we just continue moving forward in the direction we're going and increase our pace and our effort and our grit and determination, we can become that person we want to be. What I really like that he said about his parents is they allowed him to fail. They allowed him to make mistakes out there. And how many parents today how many of us are helicopter parents where we're comforting, we're bubble wrapping our children when in fact that's not what's helping them anymore. We need to let our children fail, and we need to then be there to pick them up and show them, to give them the advice to say, okay, here's how to avoid that mistake again. And I really liked what his parents told him. Don't quit. If you quit today, it's going to be easier to quit down the road. And I can tell you, I don't remember Kyle quitting anything in high school and beyond. And really what I like, the fact he's an Evel Knievel fan, and that even if Evel Knievel knew he was going to fail at something and he wasn't going to make the jump, he'd still do it anyway. I mean, a lot of us pull back if we have the slightest doubt or concern. We kind of pull back and go back into our reserve space. Evel Knievel taught us as young men that get out there and do it. Take the jump, make the jump. Even if you don't think you're going to make it, do it anyway because you'll learn in the process. So that's great stuff. The last 3 years have been kind of a challenge. I know obviously you've retired in the last 3 years from the force, but what do you think have been your greatest learnings in the past 3 years, Kyle?
Oh boy. Brian, when I retired after 31 years, my goal was to get my mind to forget what my eyes had seen. I didn't want to. The good thing is I had a lot of hobbies, so I didn't have a problem really with the transition, with my daily. You understand, 31 years for a state trooper into a detective, there's a big routine there. It's the same routine. I always say I was on the you mentioned your hamster wheel. I was on the hamster wheel fueled with adrenaline and caffeine for 31 years in a structured daily routine, always laser focused, looking for criminal activity 24/7, 365. Trust no one outside your inner circle of family and friends. And then on September 1st, 2020, I had to wake up and not do any of that anymore. Like I said, I had some hobbies, but psychologically I had to retrain my brain. And I think I managed to do that. I still remember a lot of things, and you're never going to forget everything you did, but I try to keep my mind really focused. I'm one who likes to get really enthralled in a project or in a book, or I'm very extreme, Brian. If I can't just watch one episode on Netflix, I'm watching all 300 of them at once. Or 38 of them at once. That's just kind of my personality, So I try to stay real busy on whatever I'm doing. And it's helped me transition into the retirement life.
Oh, that's. Now, you had said something to me a couple of weeks ago, Kyle, about compartments. Are you going to talk about that today?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I learned was early on in your career, you see you see the strife of society. You see people at their worst moments 90% of the time. And it's hard not to bring that home. I teach at 12 different colleges, and one of the things I teach is, I teach them criminal investigation techniques, but I also teach them how not to get divorced, and maintain a family. There's things that they need to do, and they just can't pull into the driveway after a 12-hour shift of adrenaline dumps and rushes all night long, sprinkled with caffeine. You're not going to be able to walk into the house and be a normal person and interact with your family. So police officers have to learn how to compartmentalize those things that they see And for me, I did that. And like I said, you're just on this focused routine every day where you can handle, the nastiest thing you can think of. And then that you go home, you go to sleep, you wake up the next day and you look for another one, or you work on it again, and you keep doing that. Well, after 31 years, I found that all the compartments in my mind were full. I didn't have any more compartments to compartmentalize anything. And things, I needed to say some things and kind of get rid of it and move on with it. And so, that's worked out okay for me. I mean, I haven't had to seek any kind of professional help. I mean, it's offered to all of our retirees when you leave. The Michigan State Police are really good about that kind of thing. They don't want anybody to go into retirement, with any kind of issues. And so, but I think the main thing is, your compartments get full. You have to move on and see what life is like on the other side.
When you said that to me a couple of weeks ago on the phone, that stuck out to me, and I actually shared that with several family members and friends and many of my clients. I just thought that was so profound. Well, you've seen a lot. 31 years on the force. I mean, you've been in the worst parts of our world in Lansing, Michigan. Over the course of your time on this earth, Kyle, what is the most difficult thing you've ever gone through?
Well, to date, because I know I'm looking ahead at, things that are going to happen, and that's reality and that's life. And I always look at things, and I don't try to act like things. I'm not going to have hurdles ahead of me, but I'll address those, and I mentally try to prepare for those ahead of time. But to date, Brian, probably just because of my age and kind of how things happened was July 11th, 1994, as you mentioned in your open, is burned in my soul forever. My best friend and former patrol partner, Trooper Brian Bosley, badge 383, we came through the police academy together in 1989, and we both were assigned to the Michigan State Police Ypsilanti post, which no longer exists, but it was known for high activity, high crime areas. We both were assigned there along with 2 or 3 other recruits out of our school. And Brian was killed in the line of duty on July 11th, 1994. Well, how that happened was, we didn't really hang out a lot in recruit school because we were in 2 different groups. He was in they had A, B, C, and D, and he was in the B, and I think I was in the C. So we didn't have a lot of interaction there, but we both were assigned to the same post, and we soon realized that, hey, we're both single troopers here. We both love sports. We both love fast cars. We were on the same shift. So we started hanging out together, being very close. We started working the same shift and working in the same car together. And it just really clicked. We really had chemistry. We didn't even have to say each other anything sometimes when we went to, into like a foot pursuit. We already knew what the other one was going to do. Even the bad guys on the street kind of got to know us, and they would call us Batman and Robin. And the joke in the car was we were always arguing back and forth of who was going to be Robin. Well, my argument was, hey, I'm 6'1", you're 5'7" or 5'8", you have to be Robin. And he was the kind of guy that said, no, I'm actually Batman. So we always had that kind of banter back and forth. He was the criminals that we dealt with. And remember, we deal with 10% of the population 90% of the time.
Okay.
That's one thing. You deal with a lot of a small percentage of the criminals, but a lot of times it's generational. I think I arrested 3 generations in the same family for the same offenses.
Wow.
It's unbelievable the things that you see. But the criminals knew him by name because he was very active. They could never pronounce his last name of Igelski, so everybody started calling him Eagle. Well, that was the perfect name for him because he didn't miss anything on the street. Absolute warrior, but crime fighter in every sense of the word. And he was a speed. He was the speed in the car, in the distance runner, and I was not. We'll put it that way. Okay. So it came a point, Brian, where after 4 years of working together in wild high-speed pursuits and foot chases and street fights and drive-by shootings, and bank robberies, and hundreds of contraband seizures that we were involved in. Early in 1994, we both agreed that maybe it was time we needed to depart that area for a change of scenery. So we both submitted our transfer requests. We tried to get to the same work sites, but it didn't work out. We ended up getting a trooper spot at the St. Clair post over by Port Huron, Southeast Michigan. And then for some reason or other, the kid from the UP accepted a position in the world of undercover narcotics in East Lansing. And we stayed in touch a lot. We still hung out a lot on our days off that we had that were the same. And, our conversations kind of then centered around the fact that we were both just thankful we made it out of Ypsilanti alive, because there was really nights where we really didn't think that was going to happen. I mean, it was really kind of wild time. And approximately 3 months after we kind of split and went to our separate work sites, he was killed in a traffic crash on July 11th. I think we had split in March, and in July 11th, he was killed. My wife and I were living just outside of Lansing, Michigan, a small town of Charlotte. They call it Charlotte here in Michigan, not Charlotte. Mm-hmm. for those not from Michigan. When Brian's girlfriend called the house late at night to inform me that he'd been killed, it's a call I'll never forget. I'll never forget. It's burned in my mind. And it was at that moment, Brian, that I really realized that the police academy prepares you for a lot of things, but this wasn't one of them. And with 4 years on the job, I was asked to give the eulogy at my best friend's funeral in front of 1,200 cops, grieving family and friends of Trooper Yagelski. And 5 days later, at 4 a.m., I found myself sitting in a hotel. I think it was a Holiday Inn or something in Alpena, Michigan, where the funeral was. And I'm staring at a blank cocktail napkin with a pen in my hand. And I didn't have one word on the napkin, and I didn't know what to put on there. And this funeral was just a matter of hours away, and I didn't know what I was going to say, I didn't know how I was going to stay composed to do it. But I just pulled it together and kind of did what I thought he would want me to do, and I did it. I pulled it off, and I was able to try to eulogize his life, and as I saw it, and everybody knew what kind of a warrior he was, but I wanted everybody to kind of know, his personality quirks and some of his pre-patrol routines and stuff like that a lot of people didn't know about. And he was a perfectionist with his uniform and his patrol cars, and he had a photographic memory. I mean, those are just things that come to mind, and he had a nickname for everybody. Unfortunately, mine was Homer. It was some reference to Homer Simpson, I think, at the time. I think the Simpsons were new back then, and I don't remember. But I called him Willard the Weatherman because he was famous for stopping cars in torrential downpours when most cops were trying to stay dry. He was out there working, and I was always soaking wet while he was doing it. So, but we're very competitive with each other. Brian, it got to the point where on and off duty, I had to take him on vacation with me so he wouldn't get ahead of me in the activity numbers at the post. So
well played.
Yeah. So once I was, I'd share this with you, and this is when I was given the eulogy there of Brian. I was talking about who the real Robin was in the 4-year period of our crime fighting duel. When I eulogized him, I let everybody know that today we're burying the real life of Batman.
Wow. Well, if anybody else out there doesn't have goosebumps, I don't know what makes your heart tick, because of my hair on my arms are standing up like needles right now.
Well, let me make them stand up again, because this made me stand up, Brian. And I to this day, I still don't believe it happened, but it did. Brian's badge number was 383. And when you die in the line of duty, the Michigan State Police retires that number. No one else can ever use that badge number. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, that's for troopers. Now, when you get promoted, I got promoted in 1998 to detective sergeant. So there's a new set of numbers, right? Those can be reused or whatever, but you can never use the same one that's been retired. So when I got promoted, they tell you to go oversee the quartermaster guy, and you got to surrender your trooper badge, and they reissue you a detective sergeant badge. So I went over there, and it's this old warehouse back in 1998, and the quartermaster guy was kind of a burly or a gruff old gentleman, and he said, "Hey, just give me your trooper badge, and then go back there in this metal vertical filing cabinet in the drawer that says Detective Sergeant. Pick yourself out a new one, bring it up here, give me the number so I can record it." And so I walked back there. I was by myself. A big old rusty vertical cabinet, and the second drawer or third drawer down was the one I needed to get into, and I started pulling on it. Where you pull the little button sideways, and it just wouldn't open. It was jammed, and so being the muscle head that I am, I don't have any finesse or anything. I just cranked on the drawer, and it flew open. These cardboard dividers that were in there holding all these badges were all just jammed in there. All this cardboard flew out of the way, and then I heard one of the metal badges hit the cement floor, and I reached down to pick it up to put it back in the drawer. And when I looked at it, it was Detective Sergeant badge number 383.
Are you shitting me? Wow.
I'm not kidding. And I kept that badge until the day I retired. And when I retired, I was issued retired Detective Sergeant 383. I still have it.
So Brian lives on. The real life Batman lives on.
It's not the first time that he sent a message to me, I'll be honest with you. But I was happy to have it, and I didn't want to give it up. So I still have it.
That just kind of goes back to there's so much symbolism to that, Kyle. I think, so often we go metaphorically, we go back in life and we're digging through these rusty old stubborn files or file cabinets. And sometimes within those is where we find the real miracles of life. And that's a perfect example of that. That's something that story can be shared for generations to come, because in my opinion, I could be wrong, I think there's more than just coincidence to that.
Yeah, I do too. I'm with you.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, Batman and Eagle, this one's for you, obviously. Kyle, I know as a police officer or as a state trooper, you and as a detective, sometimes you have to get really raw with people. Now, as the course of your life has changed, you go from a young man full of testosterone and inexperience and all these other things going through our heads in our 20s, now to the man you are today. How have you changed your style when you have to get really raw with somebody who's doing something really stupid?
I ran street crews. I was a sergeant of some street crews, and then I was also a football coach and a basketball coach. And so, I like to use the firm but fair, and Brian Bosley used that as well. When I dealt with people in public, I understand sometimes when people do that. Listen, if two people get in a fist fight, I can understand why they get in a fist fight. There's emotions involved. There's a disagreement. I understand that, and normally, I can deal with handling those kind of people. But when you have people that randomly drive around and break into your house and steal your things to support a methamphetamine habit, I have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. But you still, when you encounter those kind of people, you still have to be a pro. As a police officer, I tell recruits when I teach them, they get paid to be respectfully curious. That's your job. You're to solve mysteries that no one can solve. You may have to sit across the table from the nastiest person in the world. Brian, I've sat across the table from a serial killer. I've sat across the table from a child molester. And Sean Ravey brought this up as well, because he dealt with it. You want to reach across that table, but you got to be a pro, and you got to put a case together, and you got to prove that this person did that crime, so you can let the legal system do its thing, and you have to be a pro about it. And composure is real big. I learned that at a young age, to maintain your composure. I think one of my favorite things, quotes is from Martin Luther King Jr. And it was, what does he say? The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Mm-hmm. But here's how I dealt with being raw with people that work for me. I think you have to be, first of all, before you can be raw, you have to be real. Okay. You have to know the personality of the people that you're dealing with. I've had football teams. You can't use the same motivational techniques on all 30 kids on your team because it doesn't work.
Right.
Some kids respond to loud motivational messages, and others would shut down. So you got to know your audience, to use a better term. And then when I would have my teams, I would have 6 or 7 people underneath me that was a street crew, and they could see through you. If they knew who the pretenders were, they wanted you to be real with them, and that's kind of what I would do. And then, I didn't really have to do too many ass chewings with my troopers. They were handpicked elite, hard workers, but once in a while, my criticism was more motivational style. And in my football coaching, I tried to live by praise in public, criticize in private.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to, in the heat of the battle, get after somebody during a football game or a basketball game, I didn't criticize it. I tried to make it more motivational. So that's kind of what I do when it comes to being raw with people. I would also offer this too. If I had one of my troopers that was upset with me about a decision I made or a performance rating I may have given them, I would request them to come in my office in private and voice the issue. And about 99% of the time, we would resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd give them some detail as to why I did what I did. And normally we'd be okay with that. I guess you're always going to have somebody that's not going to take your explanation or your rationale for doing something. The important thing is, when I coached and when I ran my crews, I wanted my players and my troopers to know I loved them and I appreciated their efforts all the time. I never wanted to be looked at as a non-authentic supervisor or coworker. Here's a good story. I felt more comfortable leading from the front than managing from the rear. And that type of leadership style or supervisory style, that doesn't really go well with high command always. Because, I've worked for, one thing I don't respond to really good, Brian, is micromanaging.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at receiving that type of supervision. And I worked for some of those. High command didn't like my management style. And the reason was, I stuck up for my guys, I really did. If they screwed up, they screwed up. But I would always try to make sure that they knew they were appreciated. Well, I had a command officer one time. He was a kind of a known micromanager. He stopped me in the hall one day, and he said, "Why do you reward your people on your team with, like certain days off or preferred shifts and schedules?" I would always tell my crew, if we work, let's try this Monday through Thursday. We're going to go hard 10-hour days. We're going to expand our day to a 10-hour day. We're going to work super hard. We're going to get out there. We're going to fight crime. We're going to find the bad guys. And then we'll have a Friday off. And the command hated that schedule. They would come to me, "Why are you doing that?" And I would explain to them it was motivational and morale was key on my teams.
Sure.
I always wanted positive morale because it always obviously equaled great production on the team. And I had this guy tell me that morale is overrated. He said a trooper will work regardless of what the morale is. And he couldn't have been more wrong, in my opinion.
Of course.
And I was able to show them that, you have good morale on your team. My troopers really worked hard, and I rewarded them for that. And they had some kind of an issue with me doing that. So.
What you just described for leadership, Kyle, sounds like someone who's been in the corporate world for 31 years, leading individuals, or someone like me who's been coaching leadership for 26 years. What you shared is exactly what does motivate people. So the person who stopped you in the hall could not be more wrong, and you were definitely right. If you want to get into the coaching business, let me know. I could use a good partner.
You do good. I'm not never going to do that.
But I have to be Batman, though. I'll be.
Absolutely.
I'll be Captain Marvel, Shazam.
There you go.
Because I'm still a boy at heart. So, Kyle, you shared a story with me when we talked a few days ago regarding a parent that was disgruntled and discouraged about their child, and she had requested you to handle it a certain way, and you handle it in a completely revolutionary way. Can you share that with the Bamboo Pack?
I'm trying to remember what.
Well, I think she wanted to have you put handcuffs on him because he was.
Oh yes. Okay, I know what you're talking about. So it's very common in the police world, and a lot has come through in uniform. When we're a uniform officer, you might go into a restaurant or whatever, be waiting in line or eating or whatever, and a mother would bring her small child over and say, it was very common for them to say, "Officer, can you put handcuffs on my boy? Tommy's been a bad boy today, and I think we need to put handcuffs on him." And I would never do that because just the thought of doing that, I was out there to try to get these kids at a young age to look at us differently, and I didn't want that ingrained. Their first experience with a police officer, you surely don't want to put handcuffs on them, even if it is kind of a rib. So what I would do is I'd like, no, I'm not going to do that because Tommy's a good boy. He's going to grow up to be a police officer. And I'd pull out I carried these little stickers. They're little badge stickers. And it said like junior trooper on them. And I put that on his shirt and the kid would light up, that kind of thing. But I just didn't feel like that was appropriate, to do that. And some guys may have done that. I don't know, but I never would do that. I didn't, because I always look back at, I was the kind of detective who, okay, I might get a confession from somebody or I might prove a case on somebody and I know the crime they committed and what they did. I was the one that always wanted to sit across the table and ask the person why they did what they did. A lot of times when you get down to the root of it all, they harken back to their childhood and why did you run from me? Why did you run from the police? Because when I was young, the police put handcuffs on me or they came in my house and they remember that stuff and it leads to behavior later in life. And I saw it firsthand sitting across the table from people.
I mean, that is what you did there was you completely changed the paradigm of a young child and their viewpoint of the police force and the police officers and the troopers around the world. I mean, those small gestures go so far down the road. It might not have had that profound impact on every child, but I'll guarantee you turned the direction of a child's life just by doing that simple thing, handcuffs or a sticker. I mean, that's...
Well, we always used to say if we could just, the old saying is it takes a village to raise a child. It really, we kind of thought that because there was a lot of kids. I coached football, Brian, and a lot of times over 50% of my team was from one-parent families. Mm-hmm. And I got to know these kids, and I noticed that they needed football more than football needed them. They wanted to come to football practice to be a part of something. They wanted to be a part of a team. And believe it or not, those kids wanted structure. We ran a very structured football practice. We took a lot of the discipline from the State Police Academy, and my fellow coaches. My best friend and assistant coach was in the military, and we ran a very structured practice. It was, we knew we were going to do this drill for this many minutes, blow the whistle, everybody runs, just like Barry Pearson did to us. Mm-hmm. We ran it. But these kids loved to being a part of that. And, you just wanted to try to make them have a better life. And that I dealt with a lot of that.
Kyle, you said what percentage roughly came from one-parent family?
Some of the teams I coached over 50%.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I just try to fill maybe a role and give some of the kids some advice. And I mean, Brian, I never saw Sean Ravey is an expert on the children's, investigations and forensic interviewing. And I did a lot of them myself, but I wasn't considered an expert in the field. But children are so abused in this country. They're so abused. It was hard to see. Some of the kid cases were the hardest ones I had to work. And, those were the ones those compartments that got filled. Those were the ones that were in it.
I can well imagine, brother. I really can. 1 hour before you and I started broadcasting today, I follow a Facebook site called Proactive Coaching. and they showed a picture of a football player, and the quote from today was, "One of the most important kids you will ever coach is the one who needs the program more than the program needs him or her."
Oh man,
and that
absolutely.
that popped up, and I saved it on my computer screen so I could share that because I knew your style of leadership and coaching. Interesting for the Bamboo Pack, when Kyle and I spent an hour and a half on the phone last week, and we talked, and it was so interesting to hear Kyle's story and his journey as a state trooper and a detective, because, especially over the past 3 years, with these assholes out there trying to, vilify police officers to the point where some people have begun to deify criminals and vilify the police force. We don't often see the heart behind the badge or the man or woman behind the badge, and the things that Kyle has done outside of just saving us from the bad guys and bad girls out there. He's also done things like coaching and taking these children who come from, one-parent families who need a structure. They need a family outside of the family, and he's given that to them. Giving a badge sticker versus handcuffs on a young child. All of these things that he has done, and a lot of police officers and troopers and of all levels do this on a consistent basis. This is the stuff, and these are the things that need to be remembered. These are the things that need to be broadcast, and these are the things that need to be shared with the world. What's really happening, not just of catching bad guys and solving crimes, but the difference in the lives that they make to our children, for our children in the world. It's astronomical. And I can't thank you enough, Kyle, because having raised several children myself and having a grandson coming up the way and a young 12-year-old bonus little girl in my life right now, it's great to know that people like you have been out there, making such a great improvement and impression on their lives.
Thank you, Brian.
Ooh, good stuff. What's next for you, Kyle? I know you've got a lot of hobbies going.
Like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna take care of the folks. They're getting up there in age, so I've been trying to help them out as much as possible. And I make frequent trips up to the Upper Peninsula. And, I have my 3 little companies or 4 companies now, but they're all small, and I'm trying to get those ramped up a little bit and stay busy with those. And taking care of the folks at this stage of their life, I owe that to them for all the support that they gave me over the years. So I want to go up there and help them out with that. And I have a drone. One of the things, Brian, real quick, I needed something to keep me occupied when I retired. I was in Best Buy one day, and I'm a gadget nerd, at heart. I like my gadgets. And so I was walking by and I saw these drones in the showcase, and I'm like, what is this? And so I went home, and I'm a YouTube, I'm always finding stuff on YouTube to watch. I started watching these videos of these drones, and I'm like, this is tremendous. So I ended up getting one, and then it led to 4 more, and now I have a fleet of 5. I started a drone business, a drone company, the Great Lakes Drone Service, and I got my commercial drone pilot's license through the FAA. So I'm legal to fly commercial, and that's what I've been doing. So I've been traveling around doing drone flights and that kind of stuff. So I'm really immersed in that. I really enjoy it.
Is it okay if I post your website? You have a website?
Yeah, I do. It's GreatLakesDroneService.com. And then there's some social media sites if you want to throw those out there if you want. I'm
going to find them all and post them all on the text version of this podcast.
Yeah. I got, if you want to follow that on Twitter, it's GL Drone Service. And then some of my motivational stuff in my consulting businesses on Facebook at McPhee Enterprise, Inc.
I'm just trying to write this down.
And then, I don't know if I can ever be as good as you, but I've played around with the podcast world through YouTube with some friends of mine, and I've interviewed a few. Sean Ravey, we had a similar guest, and so it's called the Chiefs C4 podcast on YouTube, and you can follow the shenanigans of the retirement life. And I'm going to probably start ramping that up a little more and bring on some more guests in the police world, and some try to live up to my hero, Brian Bosley.
Oh yeah, I think you've surpassed the hero world for me, buddy. I'm still trying to catch up with you. Interesting story about Kyle and I is Kyle and I dated the same young girl in high school, hung around the same group of people, never got super close as just the two of us, but just we're always in the same pack, played ball together, same group of friends, and things of that nature. Separated, as I mentioned before, for a number of years. Just he was on his way, I was on my way. And it's so interesting when you come back 25, 30 years later, and you finally meet the man that you've known for 30 some years. You finally meet him for the first time. And I can honestly say, and we're not ready to wrap up just yet. I got another question here, but it's been such a refreshing, it's been so amazing to see Kyle McPhee do what he's done for this world, specifically for the state of Michigan, the city of Lansing, and raising two amazing boys who are going on and doing the same thing. It's such an honor to say this is a man from a small town in St. Ignace who really did make big in his life. And it's like I said, I'm proud to call him a friend, and I'm proud to call him a brother. And so good stuff. This podcast I knew was going to be amazing. That's why I saved it to be released on Monday morning, which is the top time to be released. So Kyle, one question though, is there any question I haven't asked you that you wish I would have, or is there any parting words and wisdom you want to share with the Bamboo Pack?
Well, I'll say this. You mentioned the police being vilified, and they are. And nobody really wants to get into the business anymore because of that. But you have to understand, and I want everybody to know, and I tell the recruits this when I teach them, we're no better than anybody else in society. We're just regular Joes. We put our pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. We just see the underbelly of society that most people don't see. We get to see this stuff. And police officers by nature, you have to work and live. You work in a fishbowl. Everywhere you go, people are looking at you, either in your patrol car, when you're eating dinner at Subway, they're staring at you because they're waiting for something to happen, and they're waiting to pull that cell phone out. And quite, frequently, the 10 seconds during the fight to get on the video, they didn't get the 2 minutes beforehand, and they didn't get the 2 minutes after that would, clarify the situation. And we kind of get vilified that way.
Well, the thing is, Kyle, I think you all have been vilified by a very small minority of loudmouths in our country, but the vast majority of Americans, especially if not all rational Americans, understand the reality behind the news clips. So, yeah. But squeaky wheel gets the oil, and sometimes the loudmouths get the press. Unfortunately,
Brian, I just want to say my last thing I'll say to you is I'm really proud of you, because you are such a motivational and inspiring individual. I've got to get reconnected with you, and I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts, and I've read some of your writings online, and I'm really glad to call you my friend. I'm really proud of you.
Oh, well, thank you, Kyle. You're the first one to say that on this podcast, so maybe that's a good indication for future guests. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you, Kyle. It really does. Well, there's a lot to capture here. What I got out of my time and our time with Kyle today was primarily, I loved what you said, lead from the front rather than manage from the rear. Even if high command didn't like the way you managed, you did that. And that shows in everything you've done so far, from raising Hunter and Dylan to your, leading other troopers to coaching football. You've taken these young people and these new recruits or these new troopers under your wing, and you've taught them the right way to live life, not just on the field or on the streets, but also how to live life all across the board, how not to get divorced. What a great thing to teach them. And the fact that a friend of mine like you has gone through so much and has seen so many things that the rest of us can't even fathom, that you've had to compartmentalize your life so much to the point where you finally ran out of compartments. Woo, that's some heavy stuff, but it just, I think all of us in the Bamboo Pack and around the country and around the world can just give a big thank you for Kyle McPhee, for the Sean Ravies of the world, for those people who go out there every day, put on that uniform, slap on that badge, and go out there and fight the people that we don't even see. We don't see the demons. We don't see the wild animals trying to come out of the forest and cross the walls of our fortress, because they keep them at bay. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Kyle. You've done a fantastic job with your life, and you're continuing to do that. So.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, it was an honor. I appreciate you, and I thank you for being probably, like I said, I expected this to be an amazing podcast, and it surpassed my my expectations. And I can always tell by the number of notes I take. So now I have to go through and siphon through these and figure out what I'm going to post and what I'm going to keep out. So
you have to promise me something.
Of course.
I want the interviewer has interviewed the interrogator today. Now I want you to come on mine, and the interrogator's going to interview the interviewer.
Can I have a glass of bourbon while I'm being interviewed and interrogated?
Absolutely.
Anytime, Kyle. I'd be honored to be on your podcast. Anytime you'd like. I don't have a lot of police stories, but I got other stories I can share. So
I'm looking forward to it.
So thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you being such an amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast today.
Okay, Brian. Thank you.
Please stay tuned so we can talk a few minutes afterward after I wrap up here.
Sure.
All right. All right, everyone. I think we all got a great deal of value out of this podcast with retired state police detective Kyle McPhee. We want to thank him for coming aboard, and we want to once again dedicate this episode to the real-life Batman, the Eagle, Brian Egelski, badge 383. May he live on in memories and in Kyle's retired badge as well. Everyone out there, in the meantime, thank you for tuning into the Bamboo Lab podcast. It was an honor to have Kyle on here, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heart letters on this one, and we're going to have him back on again for sure. Out there, please, this week and the rest of your life, get out there and sculpt it, man. Sculpt that one life you have. Get out there and strive for your best every single day. Show love and respect to others, and by all means, live intentionally and live consciously. I appreciate you all.